It all started on a night when the world was too loud to hear the truth. Venice, gold lights rippling on the canal. Photographers shouting names. The sound of applause bleeding into the soft hum of strings from a nearby orchestra. Dakota Johnson stepped out of the black car, her silver dress catching the flashes like glass catching sunlight. Her calm smile didn't show it, but her hands trembled slightly. Festivals always made her feel like she was floating in someone else's dream. Glamorous, dazzling, but never real. Across the red carpet, Sam Heughan was already there, surrounded by a wall of cameras. His tuxedo fit perfectly, his charm effortless, the kind that made interviewers lean closer than they meant to. When his eyes met hers, the noise faded. For a second, the world forgot to breathe. They met later that night, not under the flashes but behind the curtain of it, at an after-party on a candlelit terrace overlooking the Grand Canal. She was sipping wine. He was pretending not to look at her every few seconds. "Beautiful view," he said finally. "Are you talking about the city or yourself?" she teased. He laughed, that deep, disarming sound that made people trust him too quickly. "Maybe both." And just like that, they fell into the easy rhythm of something new. They talked until dawn. About acting, loneliness, their love for quiet mornings. Sam told her how, despite the fame, he sometimes went days without speaking to anyone except his dog. Dakota admitted that she feared interviews more than film critics. "Everyone thinks you're supposed to be confident," she said softly. "But sometimes I just pretend." "Maybe we all do," he replied. By morning, they were walking along the empty canals, their shadows touching even when their hands didn't. No one saw it then, but that was the beginning, the first spark of something that would burn brighter and darker than either of them could imagine. For months, their connection was a secret whispered through time zones. Late-night calls, hidden weekends, notes left in hotel rooms. "Promise me one thing," Dakota said one night over the phone. "Anything. Ideographic period, when people find out, don't let them turn us into a story." He promised, but stories have a way of writing themselves, especially in Hollywood. By the time they attended the Golden Globes together, the illusion of privacy had shattered. Their pictures flooded every platform, headlines screaming, "New power couple." They smiled through it all, but the cracks had already begun. Dakota was filming Lost Angels in Los Angeles, Sam was back in Scotland for Outlander. The distance stretched thinner each day. Messages got shorter, calls missed. Then came Amy. Amy Shiels wasn't new to Sam's life, they'd been friends for years, the kind of friendship that lives quietly beneath fame's noise. She was Irish, sharp-witted, with a laugh that could disarm any tension. When she joined the cast of an indie project Sam was producing, people assumed it was coincidence. It wasn't. Amy brought calm and trouble. It started innocently enough. She'd visit the set, bring him coffee, tease him when he forgot his lines. But there was something in the way she looked at him, not like a fan, not like a co-star, but like someone who saw the man beneath the myth. And Sam, lonely, exhausted, drowning in the expectations of two continents, found comfort in that. He didn't mean for it to happen. No one ever does. One evening, after a long shoot in the Scottish rain, Amy stopped by his trailer. They shared whiskey, laughed about bad dialogue, and talked about how fame makes people forget who they were before the lights. "You miss being unknown, don't you?" she said. He nodded. "Every day," she smiled sadly. "Then maybe you just need someone who remembers who you are." That sentence lingered in the air, heavy, dangerous, irresistible. He didn't kiss her. Not that night, but something had already shifted. The first article came out 2 weeks later. Ideographic period, Sam Heughan and Amy Shiels, more than friends. Dakota saw it at 2 a.m., scrolling absent-mindedly between takes. Her chest tightened, but she told herself it was nonsense. She'd known about Amy. Sam had mentioned her more than once. An old friend, he'd said. Still, when she called him that night, he didn't answer. The next day, he sent a message. Filming ran late. Miss you. It wasn't enough. By the time they met again, 2 months later, in London, the tension was unspoken but sharp enough to cut. Why didn't you tell me she was on the film? Dakota asked quietly. He exhaled. I didn't think it mattered. It does when people think you're sleeping with her. He looked at her, weary. Do you? Her silence was answer enough. That was the moment the trust began to crumble, not because of Amy herself, but because of the space she filled between them. Amy didn't mean to cause damage. Or maybe she did, in the quiet, unintentional way people do when they want something they shouldn't. Sam tried to keep things professional. He avoided dinners, ignored tabloids, even told Amy, people are talking. She laughed. Let them talk. They always will. But fame doesn't forgive proximity. Every glance became a rumor. Every smile, a story. Meanwhile, Dakota felt the weight of absence, the way he'd stopped texting mid-conversation, the way his words grew shorter. One night she wrote him an email she never sent. I don't know if I've lost you, or if you're already gone. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe we were just pretending we could be normal. She deleted it before hitting send. Autumn came with cold air and colder silences. Sam and Dakota hadn't seen each other in nearly 3 months. Their relationship now existed in fragments, scattered messages, interviews where they smiled too brightly, and memories that no longer fit their present. One evening, Dakota arrived unannounced at Sam's flat in London. She'd wrapped a scarf around her face, hoping to avoid being recognized, but her heart was louder than her fear. When he opened the door, she could tell from the look in his eyes that she was no longer the only one living there. There was a sweater, not hers, hanging on the couch. A half-empty mug, the faint scent of perfume that wasn't her own. Amy. Is she here? Dakota asked. Sam hesitated, just a second, but it was enough. No, he said, but she was. The silence that followed was heavy and slow. Dakota stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't come here to fight. I came to ask you if there's anything left of us worth saving. He looked at her then, really looked, and something inside him faltered. There's always something left, he said, but I don't know if it's love or just guilt. Tears blurred her vision. Then maybe that's your answer. She turned to leave. He didn't stop her. Outside, the London rain fell like applause for a scene neither of them wanted to perform. Amy never intended to become the villain. At least, that's what she told herself. When she found out Dakota had come to see Sam, she didn't feel guilt, only inevitability. He deserves someone who understands this life, she told a friend over the phone. Someone who's not afraid of it. But later, alone in her apartment, she replayed every glance, every touch, every night they spent talking about things they shouldn't have shared. She realized that what she felt wasn't love, it was recognition. They were both lonely, both tired of being misunderstood. But where Sam saw solace, Amy saw opportunity. And now, even she wasn't sure if she'd crossed the line by accident or design. One evening, she met Sam for dinner. The air was tense. The candles flickered like fragile truths. People are blaming me, she said softly. They shouldn't, Sam replied. This isn't your fault. She looked at him, eyes glassy. Then whose is it? He didn't answer. Because he already knew. The tabloids feasted. Photos of Sam and Amy leaving a restaurant, romantic dinner. Dakota seen at an airport, alone, heartbroken getaway. Hashtags trended. Fans took sides. The internet, hungry for stories, made monsters out of people who were simply lost. Dakota's team begged her to issue a statement. She refused. "I won't let them turn this into entertainment," she said. Instead, she poured herself into her work, accepting a role in a dark indie film about a woman rebuilding her life after betrayal. When asked if the script was personal, she smiled and said, "All art is." Sam, meanwhile, withdrew from everything. Interviews cancelled, projects delayed. Even Amy noticed the distance growing again, this time between her and the man she thought she had won. "You're not here," she said one night. He looked at her, tired. "Maybe I never was." For the first time, Amy saw the truth. She hadn't changed his world, she'd only filled the silence left by someone else. Months passed, seasons shifted, fame moved on to new scandals. Sam was in Scotland again, filming among mist and stone. He spent his evenings writing, not scripts, not journal entries, but letters he would never send. One of them read, "Dakota, I keep trying to find the right words, but everything sounds like an excuse. I didn't fall out of love with you. I just fell apart while loving you. Maybe Amy wasn't the reason we broke. Maybe she was the mirror that showed me who I'd become. You deserved someone whole. I wasn't that man anymore." He folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and tucked it into his journal. Then he walked outside, into the Highland wind, and let the page go, the paper dancing through the fog like forgiveness. A year later, they met again, not planned, not staged. It was at a small film event in Paris. Sam was presenting. Dakota was receiving an award. Amy wasn't there. She had moved on to a new project, and, in her own quiet way, out of both of their lives. When Sam and Dakota saw each other across the crowd, there was no bitterness, only understanding. "Long time," he said. "Feels like forever," she replied. They talked briefly, about work, about life, about how time can heal everything except memories. At the end, she smiled. "You know, I don't hate her." He nodded. "Neither do I." Ideographic period. "Then maybe we finally learned something," she said. "Maybe," he answered. "That love isn't about possession, it's about release." They hugged, and in that moment, the love triangle dissolved, not in flames, but in forgiveness. Years later, when people looked back, they still whispered about the love triangle. But those who knew them, truly knew them, said Amy Shiels didn't destroy anything. She revealed everything. She exposed the fractures already there, the quiet fears Sam and Dakota had hidden even from themselves. She became the catalyst, the storm that broke them open so they could finally see the truth. Dakota found peace in her art. Sam found himself again in solitude. Amy, too, found redemption, directing her first film about the woman everyone blamed. When asked in an interview if it was autobiographical, she smiled and said, "Maybe. Or maybe it's just about what happens when three people mistake loneliness for love." The audience laughed softly, not knowing the weight behind her words, and somewhere, in memory, in story, in the blurred line between fiction and fame, the three of them remained forever entangled, not as enemies, but as lessons. Because in the end, Amy didn't break their story, she completed it.